This is Tales and Whispers, where every story is felt, not just heard.
Welcome! So, today we've got a story for you that starts on a street so freezing cold it literally hurts to breathe, but it ends with an act of kindness so powerful it could honestly warm up an entire city.
So what could they do? Well, the answer is so simple, but at the same time, it's just remarkable. We're gonna dive into exactly what these kids did, and you'll see how one small, compassionate act sent these incredible ripples through their whole community.
You know, this whole thing kicks off the way so many powerful stories do, with just one simple idea. A little spark that came from a moment of just pure, honest empathy.
Okay, so let's paint a picture for you. We're in Canada, it's November, and winter is not messing around. It is coming in with a vengeance. We're talking about that kind of cold that just stings your face, you know? The kind where you can see every single breath you take just hanging in the air like a puff of smoke.
And right in the middle of this brutal cold, there's this 8-year-old girl walking with her mom. She sees people out on the streets with no shelter, and something just clicks inside of her. It wasn't pity, not really. It was this urgent feeling, this need to do something. And right then and there, she made up her mind. She had to act.
So you might be wondering, how does a feeling, an idea, in an 8-year-old's head turn into a full-blown mission? Well, this is where things get really inspiring. Because let me tell you, it did not stay just an idea for long. First thing she did, she got her friends on board. 7 of them, to be exact. So now you've got this team of 8 kids, all about the same age, and they're all rallied around this one simple goal. And their plan? Oh, it was just beautiful. So simple. They weren't thinking about complicated fundraising or dealing with a bunch of red tape. Nope. It was just 4 straightforward steps they probably jotted down in their school notebooks. The whole point wasn't some massive long-term charity drive. It was about getting warmth to people, fast and direct, before that brutal cold really took hold. So, with their plan ready to go, they started knocking on doors. And get this, they weren't asking for money. They were asking for something very specific. You know that old coat in the back of your closet that's still super warm? Or that extra scarf just sitting in a drawer? Gloves you never wear? That's what they wanted. Anything that could give someone a little bit of protection from that biting snow and wind. And the way the community responded, it was just incredible. I mean, people were so moved by how genuine these kids were. They didn't just hand over their old, worn-out stuff. No, some people went into their closets and gave away their very best coats. And it wasn't because they had extras, it's because they truly believed in what these kids were trying to do. Okay, so now they have this collection of warm clothes. And this is where they move on to what I think is the most unique, most thoughtful part of their whole plan. See, they didn't just hand the clothes out to people on the street. They knew that could sometimes feel, I don't know, awkward, maybe even a little embarrassing for the person on the receiving end. So they came up with a method that was all about dignity. They went out into the empty streets and started tying the coats, the scarves, the gloves, all of it, right onto the lampposts. They literally turned these cold metal poles into these little beacons of warmth. And on every single piece of clothing, they attached this simple but incredibly powerful note. And that little note, it changed everything. It transformed this from being just a charity handout into a quiet, anonymous gift. It was just there for whoever needed it most. No questions asked, no thanks needed. So you can imagine people walking by and seeing this. Some of them probably smiled, maybe some even took pictures, others just hurried past. But the real turning point, the most powerful moment of this whole story, that was just about to happen. Now, as these kids kept working, the reality of the very cold they were trying to fight, it started to hit them. The excitement and the laughing they started with, that faded pretty quick. Their own fingers were turning bright red, they were starting to hurt, they were shivering, they were getting a very real, even if it was small, taste of what it's actually like to be out there, unprotected. And then they saw him, a man. He was walking slowly, and you could just see he was exhausted. The clothes he was wearing were way too thin for this kind of weather, and he stopped right by one of the lampposts. He leaned in and read the little card attached to one of the coats, and then he paused. He looked around, almost like he was afraid of being caught, as if he was about to do something wrong. It was like he couldn't believe this kindness, this coat, could actually be for him.
Now the mom saw him hesitating and started to move, probably to reassure him. But her 8-year-old daughter, the one who kicked this whole thing off, she stopped her with just a whisper.
but it was this incredibly profound whisper. She just said, "Leave him, Mom. It's made for him."
So the man, he reaches out with a hand that's just trembling, and he takes the coat. He puts it on, zips it all the way up, and then he looks over at this little group of kids who are watching from a distance, and in this quiet, kind of broken voice, he says just one thing: "Thank you." And the kids, they didn't say anything back. They couldn't. They just stood there with tears of just pure understanding streaming down their faces.
That one moment, that one thank you, it changed everything. This wasn't just a project anymore. It wasn't just a simple act of charity. It had just turned into a profound life lesson for every single one of them.
So later, they're all piled in the car, shivering and trying to warm up on the way home, and their mom asks them a really simple question. She just says, "What are you feeling right now?"
And wow, their answers, they just showed how much their whole perspective had changed. One of them said, "I can't even feel my hands after being out there for just an hour." And in that moment it clicked. They connected their own discomfort to what it must be like for someone trying to sleep through a whole night of that cold. Suddenly, the idea of being cold wasn't just an idea anymore. It was real. It was something they could feel. It was empathy.
And you know, that's really the heart of this whole story, isn't it? It was never really about the coats. It was about seeing a problem and letting it actually move your heart. And then most importantly, learning that real compassion, it's not just a feeling you have, it's an action. It's something you do.
And you can take that lesson and apply it to so many things, right? Goodness doesn't have to be some huge grand gesture. It can be as simple as a coat on a lamppost. It can be a respectful word to someone. It can just be making the conscious choice not to look away, to not pretend that someone's pain isn't real.
Look, the world can be a really cold place sometimes. But what these 8 kids showed us is that a heart that decides to act, well, that can break through the cold every single time. So I'll leave you with this simple question. If you have the chance to warm someone, will you?